Batman movies. I really gotta say, Batman movies. I really gotta say, out of all the high-budget superhero movies that exist, none sell like The Dark Knight's own. Believe me when I say that Batman is a brand that will sell. Doesn't matter what it is. If you put Batman on anything, you put Batman's name on something, anything, doesn't matter what, I guarantee you it will sell. And that especially goes for movies. The name Batman sells ticket sales. And if you've seen the title of the video, then you'll know this is my list of the top 10 Batman storylines that I would like to see made into live-action movies. Not anything of the DC animated films. I mean real, legitimate live-action movies like the footage that you're seeing here. So anyways, let's start the countdown. The Three Ghosts of Batman. This would work really well as a movie. I mean, Batman taking down the three men who were supposed to be his successors should anything happen to him, i.e. Batcop, Batbane, and Batdevil, and the fact that this one is, along with Dr. Hurt, who himself is Thomas Wayne, the original Batman, would make for a pretty good twist villain / twist ending sort of thing. I really see that working as a movie. The film would start off with Batman fighting Batcop, aka Joseph Miller, and defeating him in Act 1. Then in Act 2, Batman would fight Batbane and lose. Bruce Wayne would then have the Three Ghosts of Batman nightmare sequence. Then he'd wake up. After waking up, Batman would then hunt down Batbane and defeat him. And in Act 3, Batman would fight against Batdevil, and he probably would end up in the situation he's breaking out of in these images, but then he would defeat Batdevil, and after Batdevil has fallen, Dr. Hurt would come out. Batman would confront him. Dr. Hurt would admit that he was the one behind the Three Ghosts of Batman, and that he knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne, and we'd find out that he's actually Thomas Wayne, the original Batman, and the film could either end with them fighting or him getting away to set up a sequel. Either ending would be good. Growing up, I liked both Batman and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So it would make perfect sense that if I actually had a say in things, we would get a Batman TMNT crossover film. Maybe even two. I'd do it that the first film would basically be the one where Batman meets the Ninja Turtles and they team up. In the sequel, the Shredder would try to take over the DC universe because he doesn't know how many heroes are there. Batman and the Turtles beat him. Then Bane becomes aware of the TMNT universe. So he decides he's going to take it over. Batman teams up with the Ninja Turtles to stop him. And like in the comic, things don't go well, so Donatello injects himself with venom, and that also doesn't go well. So in the climax, Batman, Robin, and the other Turtles, along with Splinter, acknowledge that they need a little more help. So, like in the comic, Batman recruits the Shredder under the deal that once this whole thing is over, Batman will give Shredder a rematch, and they defeat Bane. Bane ends up back in Arkham. Like in the comics, Batman would give the Turtles his training regimen, but as a demonstration, when Batman gives Shredder the rematch, the Turtles would actually watch, and Splinter would tell them to watch how Batman fights and take notes, and that's where the sequel would end. Okay, now I'm probably gonna get a lot of hate for this one, but in my opinion, I honestly do think that a Batman Might Fall movie would actually work. And this is how I would do it. Act 1 would be the storyline Legends of the Dark Might from Batman Legends of the Dark Knight issue 38, where Batmite fights those drug addicts. That includes Joe Overdog or Underdog, and whatever his name was, and brings him in, and he ends up in Arkham Asylum because they assume he's crazy. Act 2 would see the introduction of Banemite and every hero in Batmite's universe failing to stop him. Batmite and Banemite would face off, and the fight would end with the defeat of Batmite at Banemite's hands, and that's where Act 2 would end. Coming in at number 7 is the Terminus branded storyline from Batman and Robin Volume 2, issues 11 and 12. Now, I'm not sure how I would write this, but the idea of a Batman movie where Batman fights a criminal he defeated, and because of that defeat, the criminal got locked up in prison, broke out, and decides that he's going to get his revenge on Batman by becoming somewhat of an anti-Batman who uses Batman's symbol to spread fear in Gotham City like a terrorist, is actually pretty good. If anything, it would be a very loose adaptation of the 2-issue story Terminus branded. It probably would start out with Batman bringing down the crook who would eventually become Terminus. While in prison, he recruits other criminals who, like him, got their asses kicked by Batman, so they join his army and decide to make Batman's symbol into a symbol of fear so they can terrorize the city. And Batman would eventually defeat Terminus's army, like in the comics, and then we would get the actual climax where Terminus comes out in this giant mech suit to try and crush Batman. And then Batman would jump in the Batmobile and it would turn into this giant mech suit and they'd fight. Batman beats the crap out of Terminus, defeats him, but after Batman's defeated Terminus essentially turns his suit into a nuclear bomb in an attempt to blow up Gotham City, kill himself, Batman, and everyone around them. So then Batman would use the jets in his mech suit to grab Terminus and fly him out right into the air, get him out of range, throw Terminus into space or something. Terminus explodes. Batman glides down to the streets of Gotham City, and roll credits. Legends of the Dark Knight. So basically, this one would work as an anthology film with citizens of Gotham City essentially telling stories of what they think Batman is actually like, ranging from imaginary stories to segments based off of different Batman comics all the way from 1939 to 2019, as well as events like the Night Quest saga, to futuristic Elseworld storylines like The Dark Knight Returns, Batman vs. Aliens. This one would be a two-parter, with the first part being Batman ventures into the jungle and encounters the military, who are currently fighting xenomorphs. Then Batman joins the fight, and the one lady stabs them in the back, and Batman stops her and defeats the xenomorph and or alien queen in a volcano, and takes the last egg back to the Batcave and disposes of it. And the sequel would be essentially an adaptation of Batman vs. Aliens 2, where the US government gets a hold of xenomorph DNA and they take the inmates of Arkham Asylum and essentially experiment on them, turning them into xenomorphs for a short while. And Batman would then build this awesome mech suit like the one in the photo that he would use to fight them in. And that's where it would end. It would end the same way Batman vs. Aliens 2 ended, ending the second part. Batman, A Lonely Place of Living. Okay, this one I would start off with, it would begin with a scene where Batman, Tim Drake, fights and kills anarchy in the Titans Tomorrow future. But that would just be an epilogue. Act 1 would be Tim Drake as Robin meeting his counterpart from that timeline. In either Act 1 or Act 2, they would fight Doomsday. But they would definitely defeat Doomsday at the end of Act 2. And the finale would either be Batman, Tim Drake fighting the rest of the Bat family as seen in Detective Comics 978, which is where this storyline ended, or just have him go back to the future and then have him return to adapt the story Super Sons of Tomorrow as Act 3 of this film, where he would try to kill Superboy, but his first attempt fails. The bat suit gets destroyed, so he dons the savior persona, tries to kill Superboy, aka John Kent, a second time, alongside the Teen Titans from the Titans Tomorrow future, but they fail and end up going back to their timeline, and that's where you'd end the movie. Batman vs. Predator. So this movie would go under a 3-act structure. 1, the Predator appears in Gotham City and starts killing people. In Act 2, he'd fight Batman, and Batman would lose, like in the comic. And the 3rd and final act would essentially be Batman tracking down the Predator and beating the ever-living tar out of him. And the film would end with the authorities, or whoever these guys are from the Predator homeworld, coming to Earth and bringing him down, just like in the comic. And perhaps, for a sequel, we could get an adaptation of Batman vs. Predator 2, Bloodlines, which would just start out with a new Predator comes to Earth, Batman fights him, a second Predator comes in and kills the one hunting on Earth, and Batman and Huntress fight him to the death, like in the comic. And possibly, even to make this a trilogy, we could have a final movie that would adapt the story of Batman vs. Predator 3, Blood Ties, where a new Predator comes to Earth, Batman fights him, and there's not really much of anything. Batman just keeps fighting the Predator on and off. He discovers that the Predator doesn't like the cold when the Predator isn't able to do well against Mr. Freeze. And then Batman would suit up in this mech suit that makes himself look like he fused with RoboCop, and he'd fight the new Predator only to find out that there are 2 of them, and they're both hunting Batman and Robin at the same time. Robin and Alfred would hold off the other Predator until Batman gets back. And when Batman does get back, he'd tell him that this fight is over and that they've lost. And the film would end with the 2 Predators leaving Earth to round out the trilogy, the Batman vs. Predator trilogy. And then, maybe if we're lucky and the Batman vs. Predator film trilogy goes well enough and makes enough money, we could see a film adaptation of Superman and Batman versus Alien and Predator. The first Batman story from Detective Comics issue 235. Okay, so like the others, this one would follow a 3-act structure. The first act would follow Thomas Wayne as Batman fighting against the mob. In other words, Lou Morkston, I probably butchered that, and his goons. He'd defeat him, but Lou would swear revenge, and Act 1 would end with him hiring Joe Chill to kill Thomas and Martha Wayne. Act 2 would be set in the modern day with Batman hunting down Joe Chill, and it would end with Batman killing Joe Chill, but then finding out that the random mugging was actually an assassination plot, and Batman would be hunting down Lou Morkson and beating the shit out of his thugs. His outfit would get damaged in the fight, just like in the comic. The climax of the movie would be Bruce Wayne donning his father's Batman costume and confronting Lou Morkston and killing him at the end of the movie. And we leave it up in the air as to whether or not Bruce will continue to be Batman, or if this has ended his war on crime. Night Quest. For any of my viewers who actually know me and have been watching my channel when it first started, it's kinda obvious that this is the story I would put at number 1. I really loved this storyline when I was a kid. I just thought the suit was so badass and awesome. So anyways, here's how I would do Night Quest as a movie. It would be a 4-part film series. The first part would be Nightfall. In Act 1, Bane would break all the inmates out of Arkham, and Batman would round them up. Batman would still be rounding them up in Act 2, and in Act 3, he'd return to the Batcave, fight Bane, and the film would end with Bane breaking Batman's back. The sequel would have Batman Bruce Wayne hospitalized. Jean-Paul Valley would come in and take over as Batman. He'd make the gauntlets. And then in Act 2, he would fight Bane and lose, just like in the comics. And Act 3 would essentially be the part where Bane challenges Azrael Batman to the fight. And he's completely redesigned the bat suit. And then him and Bane go at it. And the film would end with Night Quest Batman beating the shit out of Bane, nearly killing him, but sparing him on a whim because the police arrived. The third installment would essentially be Night Quest The Crusade and Night Quest The Search, where Azrael Batman as Bats drives Robin from the Batcave and then proceeds to fight crime in Gotham City. Act 2 would basically be Bruce Wayne and Tim Drake searching for Tim's parents. Bruce is kind of broken and feels that he should let Jean Paul Valley continue as Batman, and at the end of Act 2 they would find Tim's parents and head back to Gotham City. Act 3 would essentially be more of As-Bats fighting crime in Gotham City, and the climax would be him fighting the Abdicator and killing him. The final installment in this series would be an adaptation of the Knight's End storyline, where Bruce Wayne and Tim Drake return to Gotham City, and Bruce finds out what Jean Paul Valley has been doing as Batman. Bruce confronts him but gets tossed aside. Then he goes to train with Lady Shiva, and that would essentially be Act 1. Act 2 would be the part where Azrael Batman was hunting down Maxwell Shreck, and Robin, Nightwing, and Catwoman fight to beat him to the punch because As-Bats is out for blood. Batman would appear, and that's where Act 2 would end. Act 3 would pretty much just boil down to a fight between the Dark Knight and his Night Quest counterpart, with the help of Robin, Catwoman, and or Nightwing, until the fight escalates into Wayne Manor and then into the Batcave. Batman and Night Quest Batman duke it out some more. Night Quest Batman, knowing that he lost the home field advantage, tries to run, and beaten Jean Paul Valley would then admit defeat to Bruce Wayne, remove the helmet, and roll credit. But then we would get the fantasy sequence from Azrael number 1 as a post-credit scene, or a mid-credit scene,